Okay, hey everyone. I wanted to do a short episode on this idea that arose to me. It arose to me as a form of a sentence, and that sentence was that human beings are scattered in different phases of history. I was thinking about the evolution of people, the evolution of the biological entity is part of it. There's this thing they say that what the biologist cannot answer, the chemist can answer, and what the chemist can't answer, the physicist can answer. And what this implies is, or I should say it in a different fashion. When we look at the cellular level of when we look at the atomic level of phenomena, our perception of it is that it's purely geometric. Perfect geometry is at the core level of reality. As we evolved, this geometry, even though abiding by the law of symmetry, shifted and became less of a perfect geometric expression, more like a fractalized perfection. I shouldn't say fractalized, but like an expanded. What I'm trying to say is that it was perfect geometry, now it's imperfect geometry. But when we look at the organism and its evolution to the phase of self-consciousness, what we notice is that human beings went through a nomadic phase. This is something where I may only speak of it once. But in the snapshot of human civilization right now, there are different phases of human intelligence. Human beings were at a nomadic phase where it's another way of saying they were homeless. They didn't have a home. They didn't have a place to be stationed in for their reality. Then we went into the agricultural phase, right? So people began, they're like, all right, this chunk of land, I could make, lots of food from it, And so from the nomadic phase, there was this transition into the agricultural phase. From the agricultural phase, we opened up eventually, as things matured, as history took further strides, to the industrial age. Now, the industrial age allowed us to be able to live unnaturally, viably enough. So what I mean by this is that our tribes that were just huts, became rooms with air conditioning. So from the industrial phase, we went towards urbanization. We went inside urbanization, as I mentioned in a previous episode. When we went through urbanization, transition to that, it was in some sense where we reached a certain point where certain human beings, not all human beings, had the capacity to stabilize their physiological game with the realm and initiate a psychological game, right? So we then moved on to the entertainment phase. But what I mean by this is that based on, if you took a human being and looked at all their experiences from the moment they were born, and let's say to the moment, to however old they are now, they have gone through series and sequences of experiences with reality. And because their culture is a changing phenomena, human beings are all, it's not like, think of it this way, just like how human beings have different skin color, different eye color, different hair color, right? Just that they have different hair color, it's as if, like, it's hilarious. When it comes to hair, nobody has a problem, but when it comes to skin, the color of it is a problem. Isn't that crazy? Nobody cares about hair color, Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that aside from color and geometric shape, there is the shape of the types of experiences one has accumulated and how they have put that into the format of a story. So what I'm trying to say is that imagine there was this giant paintbrush, okay, and every person born has in some sense been colored by the paint of the brush being the story of the cultural phase at that time, right? So what that means is there's some people who their style is old-fashioned, you know. There's some people who they are actually futurists. For them, in some sense, style is an endless discoverable notion, right? It's as if you're not something that the past can be certain about, so you are what the future reveals, and the future hasn't happened yet. So it's another way of saying that it's as if like you select a story to become a character in, or you allow that story to change. And you know what's funny is that even though we have philosophical phrases, which even if René Descartes was here, he'd say it's inaccurate, of I think, therefore I am. What it is that the type of experience we enter gives us the most immediate subjective landscape to approach the moment. So when I say human beings, even though we're all living in 2021, most people have phones, most people have the internet, but when you look at reality, based on the quality of the style of your experience, you are, it's like saying like people have different allegiances to different historic moments, different moments in history. You know, clothing is a representation of how the individual perceives some sort of balance. Let's say somebody who's paid attention to their clothing. It is also the case that a person can be too tired to care out of necessity of survival in the moment for their outer realms. But I'm saying, in some sense, a person's behavior and all the expressions that arise from an individual are all revealing how that individual has looked at the world to extract a value system to react to. There we go. Exactly the notion of reacting to the inner scenery that is overlaid on the outer scenery, or how the outer scenery fits into the inner realms. That means right now, I'll give you a very nice example. I could say that we're on a rock in the middle of nowhere, but when it comes to my direct experience of reality, it's as if like I do not see a sphere in the void. I'm seeing like the street. I'm seeing like, you know, my balcony. So what I'm saying is that reality is a subjective, it's as if there is the history of physical one-time world events, and then there is the history, a subtler, a hidden history of how you have, the subjects have come and gone. That means if there was a camera or a bird's eye view from the sky of you, and you fast forwarded your whole life from its beginning to where you are now, you would in some sense see how many different types of thoughts have come and gone, how many different types of self-subjective identification have risen and fallen like civilizations. I can tell you personally, people have different speeds when it comes to the inner realms. And the most incredible thing I could say about this is that what is the fastest? The fastest is instantaneity when it comes to subjective perception. So you see, it's as if like when you, right now I'm looking at this light of this door, which is blue, you know? And when I look at that blue light, it's immediate. There is no other consideration. That light, that blue light, that just, or let me say street lamps beside it. Like that street lamp I'm looking at right now, it is It does not need any subjective fulfillment. You know what it is? It's as if our sight is a space, and when our sight is on physical reality, that space is given free shape, as if I don't need to imagine a street lamp, it is just there. So what does that imply? That implies that behind our eyes, we are putting image where if our eyes were open, let's say our eyes are closed and I'm visualizing the street lamp, the moment I open it, the reality, what is there, it has a significance in actuality more than how I was seeing it when my eyes were closed, right? The whole issue is, of all I feel psychological disturbances on this planet, of all human beings, is simply that they are in two worlds, but they are treating it as one. Our minds are not living like our bodies, even though they are stationed in our bodies. I remember that in my inner realms, I'm personally a playful person. And so to me, it's like language is not a replacement for truth. Language is paint on a canvas that can endlessly arise with the least amount of effort. That means it's like when I close my eyes and I visualize myself grabbing a piece of paper and writing something, that is like maybe 2 seconds, but if I was to go and grab a piece of paper from my table, like that would be something else. That would be like maybe like 30, like 10 seconds. Do you know? So in the inner realms, one can actually attempt real experiences. And I feel that we should have training camps for this. Like there should be training zones, right? Imagine, right now we don't see this in the educational system, but I feel that in the educational system, if there was, how would I say this to you? Like imagine a child goes to school, the child comes home from school and the parent's like, all right, what did you learn today? And the child's like, yeah, so we had this class called Inner Realm Training. And so everybody in the class had to sit in the room, close their eyes, and begin to realize that they have something called imagination. And the parents like, oh my God, look at what they're teaching kids today. Something Mr.Within said in 2021. Imagine it's 2040, man. But let's hope not, but what I'm trying to say is that these two lives provide different types of mobility. In front of your eyes, in the outer realms, you're mobile as an object. And this is why when you're young, you should be forced to do sports. Forced, I am telling you. The biggest issue in the educational system is that it's not preparing, it's not preparing people for life. It's preparing people for the economical sector of life. Do you see what I'm saying? It is not providing the strategies that shift the standard of first inner response intelligence. You see, people think intelligence is something you have. No, it's an engagement. It's a behavioral, expressionistic activation. Because if a person does nothing, it's like, what's up with their intelligence? They have no intelligence. They're just standing here staring at the moment. But if the moment the person activates in the inner realms, there's enough of levels and layers of ideological geometric certainty. It's as if the blueprint to our behavior is actually behind our eyes before we move. I think this would be a good subtitle, The Blueprint of Behavior. You know, I would say culturally, when I think about myself, I think about that I was, in some sense, I remember doing a project in social study when I was in grade 10 in a social studies class. I think it was called social studies. I don't remember exactly. But the project was I had to give a presentation on this what had happened to the Kurds, and the Kurds were known as people without a land. Why? Because their land was divided between three nations, right? Three nations were like kind of like breaking that land. I think it was Iraq, Turkey, and Iran. These three nations were kind of like they had broken up the Kurdish, what was the Kurdish land. Now, I remember doing that presentation, and personally, years later, just thinking that it's as if that can happen to a cultural experience. That means a person can be in one country, absorb, as imagine a mind being like a sponge, absorbing the influences, the expressionism of the environment, and then shifting to a completely different environment and having to reintegrate. Now, based on where your heart is and how your emotions are, that means if a person in one language, let's say you're bilingual, if in one language you have experienced better emotions, you will culturally identify with your experiences more than just what something has to be. You see, it's as if our eyes are the stories that we live in. Our sight gives us access. Now, what's fascinating, I'll say something new agey in here, is what? Oh my God, this was supposed to be a short episode. What is it? Okay, 17 minutes, not too bad. All right, I wanted to make a point about the third eye, right? In yogic tradition, people consider where the pineal gland is between your eyebrows, there's a third eye there, you know. Now, some schools of thought consider that it's as if the person's like an onion. The person's multi-layered, okay? And as a multi-layered person, that means like you have 7 bodies in 7 different dimensions rather than one body. Okay? So the third eye could be the sight of your subtler body in certain yogic schools of thought, but you can also consider it that the third eye is how the Upanishads say the seer of the seen is unseen. Why is this an important point? It's a suggestion that even though we are in a human framework, we have access to a state of seeing the moment, being aware of the moment that is not just based on the humanism. The third eye is the inner realm, and in the inner realm, you're actually just an observer. This is something that so many people have had an issue with, because from a secular standpoint, people are like, what do you mean there's a inner self, you know? And I'll be like, who's talking to me right now, you know? Who's asking the question? The inner self is an attributeless observer. Close your eyes and tell me if you see the surroundings of your eyes. You don't. Our mind is an ability to see without light. That means the brain requires a bit of light entering the eyes, and then it has the image. It's as if the brain's like, yo, I saw it, I can't forget it. You know, it's like, oh man. Anyways, I'll reach a certain conclusion here. What I'm trying to say is that human beings have an outer realm and they have an inner realm. As history has gone by, change has taken expression. As events, as sequences of events, series of events. What that means is human beings are coded by the world to approach the world in their own specified ways in accordance to what their memories accumulation permits. chugging coffee like a transcendental being, guys. I'm feeling the burn. Our eyes are movements. And this double-sided coin of the inner realm and outer realm means there has been once one physical-based story changing in the outer realms and one hidden life of a journey behind your eyes. So the inner realms have been shifting. Now the inner realms, they provide an ability which is equivalent sorry guys, just a second. Oh my god. Okay. So this has to be edited. Alright. So, think of it this way. It's a film. Two films are simultaneously playing out. In one film, you don't have control. The outer realms go based on their own creative force. But behind your eyes, you have control. Because you have control of what you select out of what you see in front of your eyes. We select out of our memories what imagery colors and provides a context to the moment. The free will can move beyond time in the inner realms, which means right now I am like in 2021, in this moment, right now in this moment that I'm existing giving this talk, I could just close my eyes and envision myself feeling like this is like 10 years ago. Do you see what I'm saying? Like the mind doesn't need time because it creates it or creates its implication. It can shift it. And it has to do with energy levels as well. Like I've noticed that when I'm tired, I rely more on the past. When I have enough energy, I dive into the future before the day ends. What I mean by that is that it's like from the moment my eyes open to the moment they close, there was a time where I was like, how does the past want the moment to be? And then it changed to just like, I want to see something new before I close my eyes. And that approach has taken me, has in some sense it has had an opportunity cost, where if in the regular lifetime the person is 90% in the outer realms and 10% in the inner realms, or let's say 80% outer realms and 20% in the inner realms, I feel this is like a close enough percentage ratio in regards to how many human beings are born and they just engage with external outer activities, and what percentage of their intelligence goes to their inner life, right? Anybody you see who says they're not creative, it's 80-20. That means 80% of their attention is on reality. Think of it this way. You know how in businesses, when one business partner has 51%, they get the say in the business. If your attention goes beyond 50% outer realm, you live as a mind, and your karma is different. So what that means is it's like this ratio dictates your afterlife poetically. So I have spent a lot of time moving as attention, just being the presence of my attention, rather than engaging in the cultural outer sphere. It has had its benefits at the same time. You know what it is? It's like there's a violin in your hand, and you realize it's a violin. And if you hadn't looked at it, you wouldn't have known it's a violin in your hand. You just would have felt like you're playing something. So the value of studying one's own inner life and recognizing that it's contexted through so many different layers of, think of it this way, the moment's divided between the concept context. So it's as if who I am now as a self is based on where I am or where I see, where that source attention sees itself. When I say source attention, I mean that even me giving this talk, my attention is stationed somewhere. It's not stationed in the outer realms. In the outer realms, it's stationed in my body, and my body's like right now holding this phone. But in how my attention is to myself, it's like I think personally I've gone maybe beyond a percentage in the inner realms, but I would say that if you actualize as completely as a mental being, you watch your body as if it's not your body. So there is this thing that human beings are positioned in the body. They don't have a body. The body's in view. You know, it's like a person being a guest at their friend's house, and then when the moment they leave and they come back home, they have left the reality that was giving a meaning in that moment. You know, as the Japanese say, the man is the room he enters. The man is the room he's in. I feel that our species is like, we're like 8 billion advanced technologies, or we're 8 billion beings that have access to an advanced technology, which is our intelligence. And based on how much we're occupied by our outer life, we never consider our inner life. And so emotions the impact of emotions is so much heavier when you don't notice what is based on the inner realm and what is based on the outer realm. All, let's say, psychological disturbance again is based on just this, that if the person can tell what the mind is putting in the moment, what their attention is putting in the moment, and what is in the moment before their attention does anything. This is a Taoistic clue of how Lao Tzu would say in the Tao Te Ching, action through inaction. Why? Because in the effortlessness of noticing how the moment is just there before you have any consideration on it, you are accessing what is being unconditionally, at least in that moment. As the eyes of human beings change, our choice will eventually come down to a geometric blueprint of the whole thing. So it's as if one homework the educational system didn't give was that, hey, every human being alive, find some moment where you just go alone and you have a piece of paper in front of you, and you just, for yourself, as if you are the only teacher you have access to, wonder, what do you see as the actual event happening right now? You see, when you start from there, you eventually see how your mind has held the realm. And then you're instantly freed the moment you see how you were doing something, because then you can alter it. But when you're unconscious of how you're doing something, then it's like, oh my God, it's a miracle. You know, it comes on its own and it happens on its own, and we're just like a passenger in that event. But when we bring it into consciousness, our ideological position can relate. Therefore, geometry is added in the subjective. Anyways, guys, I hope this episode was helpful, and there's so much more left to know. We are living in the pre-understanding of what the mind actually is era. And every person should attempt their own advanced communication. I say that advanced communication, another way you can define it is that it's the most advanced activity and expression in the universal sector. We human beings are pretty advanced. You know, human beings are more advanced than like any other species so far. You know, and we are also blessed with like fingers. Like dolphins may be using more percentage of their brain, but they don't have fingers. They can't compete. You know. But at least they'll know what we're doing, you know. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Blessings. Your attention is the greatest steering wheel you will find in this world. Namaste.